Mohandas Mahatma Gandhi was once dubbed as being the father of India, and he was recently named as being one of the top 25 political icons by Time.com. In the 1920s and 1930s, Gandhi led the independence movement through India, which ultimately liberated them from British rule. He applied his philosophy of satyagraha, which means truth force. He led civil disobedience marches throughout India, and they were often met with violence from the British. I would like to explain to you how he was able to gain public and political affluence throughout India, along with the major events that led to their liberation and ultimately to Gandhi's assassination. In the 1920s, Gandhi began being involved with politics, and he was part of the Indian National Congress. He did not agree with the British occupation in India, and his primary goal was to create economic independence from them. He began doing this by advocating the production of homespun cloth, which he was always garnished in. Khadar was used to replace the British textiles that were being imported. His goal was to cut the need for this off. He also used his power in the Indian National Congress to start his independence movement, which immediately gained many followers. Violence broke out from one of his protests in 1922, and he was arrested for sedition. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison, but he ended up being released after 2 because he had to have a surgery and was in recovery. So in 1930, he came back with a new civil disobedience campaign, where he led nonviolent protests throughout India and boycotted British products and establishments. The most famous boycott was known as the March to the Sea, March 12, 1930. The reason he did this was because he was opposing the salt tax that was being placed on them from the British, which taxed salt for Indian citizens, and he felt that this was going to hurt the lower class. Gandhi led hundreds over a 100-mile stretch to the seacoast city of Dani, where they were going to go to the seawater and make their own salt, which was strictly forbidden. Hundreds of the followers that he led were beat by the British and imprisoned. So this gained worldwide coverage, and it really made a lot of focus on the independence movement, and it called people to act, and it also put British in the hot seat in this way. He also began fasting to oppose the treatment of the untouchables, which on the Hindu caste system, they were the lowest caste and they were often poorly treated. Gandhi renamed these untouchables as Harijans, which means the children of God. In 1934, Gandhi decided to retire from politics in order to focus on the social issues that were impacting India at the time. He wanted to help the lower classes, the untouchables, and he also wanted to work on improving the Hindu-Muslim relations in India. In 1947, the British and the INC were able to come to a consensus of gaining independence, and they also created the creation of the Pakistan state, which was the Muslim state, and India was the Hindu state. This was meant to improve the religious differences, but it didn't that much at the time. Gandhi did not agree with this solution, and after they partitioned, riots broke out throughout India in 2 major cities, Calcutta and Delhi. Gandhi fasted both times to stop the violence in these cities, and the second time he almost died from it, but eventually all the riots stopped. In only 12 days after his second fast, Gandhi was assassinated on January 30th of 1948 by a Hindu fanatic who opposed Gandhi's advocacy for religious tolerance between the Hindus and the Muslims. He did not agree with that. Nearly 1 million people followed his procession of Gandhi's body through the city of Delhi and down to the holy Jumna River, where he was cremated as Hindu tradition. So after almost 20 years of his opposition to the British, Gandhi was successful in gaining independence from them. He was jailed a total of 4 times throughout the independence movement, and fasted countless times in opposition to various British actions. One of his famous quotes is, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." And I think he lived by that quote in the way that he always followed his own philosophy. He wanted to change India in the way that he saw fit, and he didn't stop until he was happy with the results.